Hi there, I'm Eric Wordweaver Sjerven, Gothi of the Ridgar folk here in East Texas, and I would like to welcome you to the Raven's Call. This is a show where I ramble on about different heathen-related subjects, just kind of whatever strikes my fancy, sets my mind on fire at the time. Now, big UPG warning at the beginning of this episode, like all of them. I'm not what you would call a hardcore recon. I'm not what you would call a neo-pagan fluffy bunny. I'm very much middle of the road, grassroots-focused, tribal-focused heathen. And so my views are my views alone. That's what this channel reflects. This channel reflects my view on the world and my interactions with the world around me, my observations, my studies, plus my own insights, a little bit of back and forth on all of that. So, this doesn't even necessarily reflect the views of my tribe themselves, because each heathen has their own individual views. Similarly, it has no bearing on the greater world of heathenry, macro heathenry, whatever you want to call it. It's just how I see the world. So, anyway, housekeeping stuff, you guys know the drill. If you want to interact in any kind of way, shape, form, or fashion, all my contact information is down below. You'll find the link to purchase my book. I actually still hear people say they didn't realize I had a book. Yes, I wrote a storybook focused on this family that goes through some adventures and everything, and it's how I portray some heathen ideals and kind of tie everything together into one big kind of family saga with some heavy supernatural kind of folklore elements added in there. So lots of fun. Anyway, you'll find all that down below. If you want to mail anything in, fan mail wise, anything like that, I like to show fan mail up on the channel whenever I get it. So the P.O. box is listed down below as well. And email if you want to email anything in. There's also links to the Facebook page, community stuff going on there. So jump in there, interact, join the conversation. Love it. I love seeing you guys pop stuff up on the community group and sharing your links out and starting to engage one another. I get a lot of people ask me about finding other heathens in their area. There is a roll call post in the Wordweaver Productions community page. Okay, it's a group. I add everybody to it that asks to join it. It won't let me just auto-add everybody. So anytime somebody sends in a request, I'm going to add you. Just simply because that's how the networking thing works. If you just want to keep up to date with everything that's on the show, check out the fan page. But over in the community page, there is a roll call post. This post is dedicated to all the viewers putting up just kind of their generalized area of where they are. And so if you're looking for heathens in your area, grab that post, run down the list, and see if anybody has listed that they're in your area. It's not foolproof, but it's one avenue. It's one more avenue on how to find people in your area. So check it out, see if there's anybody near to home for you, and good luck. Hope you can make some connections and get some networking going on. That's what it's all about. Now, on to today's subject. Now, we have spoken a great deal over the last few months about different things pertaining to the heathen worldview in general. And in a lot of ways, we've explored things such as the gods of limited presence or limited access. We have talked about, in the past, about regionalization of heathenry, different viewpoints on things. We have talked about heathen mound culture as far as afterlife goes. If you haven't seen that one, go back and check it out. I do discuss in some detail some of the arch heathen views with regards to the afterlife, and that's kind of a linchpin in this particular conversation. You need the preface of I am one of those that believes the soul complex is truly complex and has multiple aspects, but I believe the identifiable parts of ourselves and upon death go into the mound. It's very centered on the earth. It's very here, very physical world, very spiritual world. It's a progression of the lich returning to the physical world around us, most of the spiritual elements passing over into the spirit realm that is still here on Midgard, still part of the world of the profane. It's where our ancestors sit at feast at the table, and that is that mound culture, going into the mound, literally the burial mound. There's a proximity element there, as well as just being tied to the spiritual plane of Midgard as we know it and understand it. So, the reason that I preface this is because we talked in recent videos about the omnis. And in my last video, we talked about omnibenevolence, which was an interesting conversation. It was actually better received than I thought it would be, although people did not watch that one nearly as far through, so I don't know that it held people's interest nearly as much as some of the other videos did. The Omnis video was very well received, and you guys watched that a ton. There was a lot of views on that one, so thank you for that, by the way. Now, today's is kind of a spin-off of that, because as I've been watching the world around me, as I've had conversations with people now, in the modern day, we have seen there's kind of a disconnect with death in the modern world. And that is due to a number of reasons. Improvements in medical technologies that allow people to live well beyond their normal expected life ranges. A lot more people are living into later age than were before. People are removed from rural areas and rural life, farm life, wherein death was a normal everyday thing, from the slaughtering of cows and chickens to, untimely deaths of family members because of farm accidents and things like that. We're also fairly far removed from the last World War, which is arguably the last time that, at least in America, keep in mind, that's where I'm at. In America, that was the last time that war really, really touched people on a large scale. The conflicts that we have had since then have touched people on a more microcosmic scale, but not nearly on the scale that the world wars did. I mean, it affected everyone, and death was a very real, very palpable thing at the time. And in the plagues of old, when the Black Plague came through, the Spanish flu, things like that, death was a very real thing that we dealt with all the time. People still deal with it, but people don't necessarily deal with it in the frequency that they did before and at the young ages that they did before. There's a lot more shielding of young folks in the modern era. There's a lot more disconnect between average everyday life and the effects that death have upon that. So these instances are more marked and more poignant in a lot of ways because people are not prepared to deal with the stressors that go along with that. There is a point to all of this, I promise. So I was having conversations with an individual who had a death in the family recently. And of course, this individual was of the Christian belief and was sharing some of his viewpoints with regards to the afterlife in regards to his fallen friend. And it got me to thinking on some stuff because there's some things that I think heathens mistake in a lot of ways, because we've talked before about the afterlife stuff, and this is what we're getting into, is afterlife kind of focus. There is still a misconception. We talked before about gods of limited presence, limited access, and that the gods are not necessarily always here with us. They're not always granularly involved in day-to-day heathen life. Aspects of their presence can be felt, but as far as their main focus, their main presence, that's more of a timely thing, or something that you have to gain attention for. Now, with regards to death, I've discovered that a lot of people don't understand. Keep in mind, this channel is all about my views, not necessarily everybody's views. So if this is an unpopular opinion, I get it. It's all right. I had this thought in the conversation with a gentleman, and that is, the gods don't care about the human dead. And that sounds like a weird thing, because, what about Valhalla? What about Folkvanger? What about all these other places? And I counter those with Valhalla. If you give credence to the mythological elements of Valhalla, Valhalla itself is said to be the chosen by Odin that will serve him on the Vigrid plains in Ragnarok. Now, these are elites. These are individuals that are chosen during life because of their deeds. It's not the dead that Odin cares about in this instance. It's the living and their deeds to which he is paying attention. It is those that he is choosing to pluck from the battlefield and place in Valhalla to save for the final battle, because he feels that they can be of use to him in the battlefield. And these are the exceptional, these are the above and beyond, from face value based on what we have in the Eddas, etc., etc., etc. If you look at archaeological stuff, of course, we've touched on this before, Valhalla can be metaphorical for the battlefield grave for fallen warriors out in the field. Again, that then ties it to the spiritual plane, and the physical element of life here ties with Odin as war god. But still, it's deeds in life that earn access to Valhalla, but Valhalla is not necessarily the goal, right? Heathenry focuses on life. Heathenry focuses on the world that is here. If you looked at my video on the whole world accepting versus world rejecting religions, you'll see that heathenry itself is world accepting. This is the life. This is the world in which we exist. This is the focus of things. The whole we are our deeds aspect is about life here and now. The recording of Weird into Orlog is about active life. It's about active in the moment, in the now. Now, I believe that there are certain soul elements that do go back to the gods. There's some specific elements. If you've looked at my my Heathen Soul Complex videos, you'll see that I break the Soul Complex down in a lot of different ways, a lot of different elements between the spiritual side of things, the more physiological side of things, and the divine element, and the also in that divine touch of madness that is the Oder, that is the gift of Odin. Now, I believe that these energies are recycled within the whole reincarnation element of things, law of conservation of energy type deal, where they're just simply reincorporated for future soul complexes that come along. How you can get pieces of these that are brought about each time. It's all part of Odin's breath that he gave to all of us in the creation of Ask and Himla. Yes, I am one that definitely believes in the mythology. I'm a hardcore heathen, not a hardcore recon. Figured that one out. So, while there are elements that can go to the gods, I do not feel that most of the soul complex goes to the gods. I believe that most of the soul complex, the identifiable parts, like I said before, go into the mound with the ancestors. Now, if you look at the lore, if you look at the mythology that goes along with everything, you'll see that the gods don't pay a great deal of heed to the dead. The dead are in an other part of things. They're no longer part of the main focus. Thor is said to protect Midgard and the realm of men, the active, living people, the warriors, the shield maidens, the farmers, the workers, all of the living people in the world. This is the purview of Thor. These are the ones that he seeks to protect. The others go into the underworld, into Helheim, or into the mound. These leave the physical realm, which is the purview of the gods, their focus. They go into the underworld, the spirit realm. Yes, Odin is a gallows god. Odin does have interest in the dead, inasmuch as we see that Odin chooses from the dead for Valhalla. We've talked about that. We've also seen that Odin exercises a certain amount of necromancy, like with Mimir's head, and with the Volva, where he goes to Helheim and raises the dead, and commands of them certain things such as prophecy, mostly. The knowing of things to come. Odin uses the dead like a tool in this instance. It's not one of those where he has an interpersonal relationship with them. It's almost combative, because the dead don't want to rise. They don't want to cooperate with the living. The dead want to stay dead. And that's a thing. They've returned to the mound, and then returning to the world of the living is unnatural. And so they don't want to do that. There's a resistance to that, a natural resistance that we see with the combative nature of the Volva. Odin has to trick her, command her, to get her to do what he wants, so on and so on. So we see that Odin has an interaction with the dead. But as we've stated before, he doesn't have any kind of control over the dead. The dead are not his purview. In the video where I indicate that I don't view Hel as a goddess, per se, as part of the tribe, she is something that is other. She is cast into the underworld, which is not in the overview of the gods, as it were. Just like Jotunheim is not in the overview of the gods. That's in the outer yard side of things. That's beyond their yard. They cast Hel into Helheim to do away with her, because they don't want to deal with her, and they send her off. And they give her dominion over the underworld. Okay? Because if you look, when Odin has to seek out answers for Baldur and his death, the gods have to actually cross into Helheim, gain access to that world, and then request that Baldur be returned. And it was denied. Well, not outright. I mean, of course, it was the whole, if everything in existence weeps for Baldur, then Baldur can return. And of course, Loki, in the guise of an old woman, refuses to weep for Baldur, and so Baldur remains in Helheim until after Ragnarok. So, the gods don't have purview over the realm of the dead. The dead are outside of their view. The dead are another thing entirely. It's said in the stories of Ragnarok that Naglfar, the ship made of dead man's fingernails, will be piloted by Hofud and Loki as they bring the denizens of Helheim to the Vigrid Plains to do war with the gods alongside the Jotun, etc., etc., etc. So, the gods don't have purview over the underworld. The gods do not take much interest in the dead. That is our realm. That's our purview. The gods look at the living. They look at deeds in the here and now. And this seems like, okay, Eric, obviously, duh, but think about it in the modern day. Western society is heavily built on the overall cultural worldviews of the more monotheistic big book religions. And the big book religions are largely death cult related, especially Christianity. Because within Christianity and within some of the other religions, I would say Islam kind of falls into this area as well, the focus is on the afterlife. This is a proving ground to gain the real life, the real existence, that which is meant to be, the chosen life, the good life. They seek the afterlife. They yearn for the afterlife. They have to prove themselves here to gain access to it, but that's their focus. Everything in those religions is based on what happens after you die. The deeds here and now decide what access you have and what your reward or punishment is upon death and when you reach your eternal life. So, those are world-rejecting religions. Those are religions that focus on the other world. Buddhism itself is a world-rejecting philosophy. It's not really a religion, it's a philosophy, wherein they seek the nirvana, the state of nothingness, that moment of the empty breath, wherein they release the trappings and bindings of the physical world and ascend. They are enlightened into the next realm, except for those that choose to stay back and help others seek enlightenment. That's the whole Buddha thing, is that Buddha reached that state and then transcended the physical world into the state of nirvana. Anyway, world-rejecting philosophy. That's the goal, is there. Not here in the real life, in the here and now. Heathens, at least as far as the arch-heathen worldview and my own worldview, it's here and now. This is what we focus on. This is where the gods are looking at us. This is where the gods are paying attention. Okay? It's not about rewards in the afterlife. The one thing that I can tell you is that everybody goes to the afterlife. Right? Everybody goes to Helheim. Whether or not a portion of your soul is picked by the gods to be stuck into one of their hallowed halls, that's the purview of the gods. I don't know. But the majority of our soul complex, and everybody goes to Helheim. The whole thing about people being the liars, cheaters, and all of that going into down with Nidhogg in the river of serpents and whatnot. There's a lot of syncretism in that. I don't know that was actually part of the original viewpoints regarding Yggdrasil and the afterlife. A lot of the going to the gods in the afterlife seems to be tied to syncretism. Not necessarily that it was Christians overriding heathen worldviews, but it could be an influence of heathens interacting with Christians and then seeking a similar bond with their own gods throughout those later years wherein Christianity and heathenry existed and coexisted at that time. That's syncretism, where one adopts some of the trappings and philosophies and ideas of another religion and incorporates it into their own, thus creating a weird amalgamation that is not what the original was. All religions in the current day are amalgamations of previous religions through syncretism into what they have become now. None of the religions practiced now look like they did back then, at least not on a grand scale. Not that I have experienced anyway. There's some that probably get closer, but still, humans evolve, and it doesn't look now like it did back then. We exist in different realms like that. So the rest of the gods, you don't see a whole lot of mention of their interactions with mortals much at all, let alone with the dead. You know, Odin sends a representative down to Helheim, but again, we're seeking the answers with regards to Balder and whatnot. Thor has interactions with mortals, but Thor is said to be the common man's god, and he has an interest in Midgard, largely because Thor is born of Jord, who is a giantess of Midgard, and that ties him to the world of men, and he walks kind of both planes. Most of the other gods, I mean, Odin is said to wander the worlds, all 9 worlds, because he seeks wisdom. But most of the other gods don't have a whole lot of interaction with Midgard within the stories anyway. They do in the whole grand cosmic scale of everything working together and their influence here. The gods are here. The gods have presence here. We see that as we look around, as we interact with the world. The gods are here. Like I said, in the gods of limited presence aspect, the gods are here. I'm simply stating that within the stories, you don't see a whole lot of focus of the gods on mortals, unlike you would see with like Greek mythology or even some of the Egyptian mythology and stuff like that. And I think even the Egyptian mythology is mostly the interactions of the gods with the gods. You have some interaction with mortals in the Norse, but it's very limited. You know, Thjalfinn Roskva and then Asken Emla. Those are the main ones in the core mythology that we see interacting with the gods. Now, within the sagas, you see some other elements added in there. Raffenkel Freysgodi, you see a story of a priest dedicated to Frey and his interactions and kind of how that plays out. But even then, Frey doesn't necessarily make his presence known in that story, but it does show a tie between the gods and men. So the whole thing that I'm getting at here, why am I rambling on about this particular subject, is, again, it's a worldview thing. People have asked me time and time again to do a video on the worldview of heathenry, and I keep telling them my entire channel is the worldview of heathenry. I can't do that in one 30-minute episode, just like I can't really do my Heathenry 101 video that I did way back in the day. That is horrible audio, horrible video, before I got a decent rig. It's got almost 7,000 views at this point. I've thought about going back and reshooting that thing, but man, it's daunting because that was a big thing to cram into one video. I cannot cram the whole of the worldview into one video, and that's kind of what I'm getting at here. Is I'm building on a complex issue, not even an issue, a complex idea, a complex aspect of the heathen worldview that builds upon a number of the previous things that we have talked about and experienced with the channel. We're looking at the synthesizing of all of this back stuff into the deeper thoughts that go along with it. So the gods are focused on the living, the actions. The action is better than inaction. The living is better than the dead. If you look into the Havamal, you see things, there's a lot of focus in there about, a man's no good dead, he's better alive, but all men die. It happens eventually. Focus on what you need to do in this life. Of course, I'm paraphrasing several different stanzas down into one, but you get the idea. There's a lot of focus on actions, on deeds, on the tribe, on the survival of the tribe, on the betterment of the tribe. And these things are key to the heathen worldview. So within the heathen worldview, when we're talking about the gods don't have a lot of interest in the dead, that's something that is alien to a lot of newbie heathens because they're thinking about Valhalla, they're thinking about Folkvanger. And it's like, no, the gods are paying attention to you now. This is what garners your relationship with the gods. Your reward with the gods is in this life. Your reward from the gods is the luck that you receive from the gods in ritual. That's why we uphold the rituals. That's why we uphold the holidays. That is why we honor the gods We give gift, we reciprocate in the gift-giving cycle. We give back to the gods. These are the reasons that we seek their attention, because this is when it matters. The deeds that we do now are why the gods will honor us with luck. It is not the summation of our life in the afterlife. Will you be granted a good death by the gods? Will you go to sit with the gods? That's never been the view. That's been cribbed onto heathenry by syncretism and bastardization of ideologies in the later years, post-heathen years, largely, and some of the crossover years. But heathenry has always been about life in the here and now. So that's the essence of this particular video. The gods don't have a whole lot of interest in the dead. The gods have interest in you now. They have interest in you now. So make good on your lives now. Do things that are worthy of the gods, that are worthy of their attention. Live a good life. Live a happy life. Find your peace in this world. May your luck grow in strength. May the gods smile on you. This is what I want for you. This is what I want for you all. So that is the purpose of this video. All right? I know it was rambly. I know it was all over the place, but we came back to point in the end. All right? All of that was to tie it all together to say, the gods are focused on your deeds and actions now. So do something in this life that is worthy of that attention. Be good. Be honorable. Be straightforward. Take action. Do good things. Be heathen. Heathens are doers. You can have all the good intentions in the world, but it's the deeds that translate. It's the deeds that the gods look at. You can have all of the intention in the world of being a good heathen, but if you don't actually do anything, are you really a good heathen? So do deeds, do good things, build your communities, build your lives, build your hearths and your hearth cult first and foremost. Again, grassroots heathenry all the way. Focus on hearth cult. I still get people all the time asking me about building tribe, finding groups. Guys, focus on your hearth cult. Focus on your home first and then build tribe. Hearth cult has to be strong. Hearth cult is strong, then put yourself out there and you will slowly find people. Don't feel rushed to build community. It'll happen in time. Your friends and family are still your community. Just because they may not be heathen doesn't mean they're not your innengard. All right? Look to them. Be good to them. I think you will find things will work out in the long run. So anyway, this is a long rambly video. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off here, but I hope I got across with my point on this one. It was one of those brain flashes, brain fires that I really wanted to get out there. I haven't had a lot of sleep lately, so hopefully you guys have found it interesting. Keep in touch. Let me know if you've got any requests or anything. I do look at the groups. I do look at all the comments, and I do take viewer requests. A lot of my videos have been built off viewer requests because they will point out something that I need to flesh out that maybe I overlooked or maybe I skimmed over before, or maybe it's just been too long since that particular video was done and it's time for a re-up with some added information and some added insights. So hit me up. Let me know what you guys want to see. Let me know if you guys are still enjoying the channel and you want to keep going with this. So I listen to you guys, all right? Hail to you all. Thank you. May your hearth fires burn bright. Try and make this work. Cable. Oh, oofda. Man, I feel like I'm being washed out. Ooh, the microphone may be set a little too high. Let's try that. That should be better. Shouldn't be brushing it with my beard now. That always leads to issues. See if I can adjust the camera a wee bit. Not really. UV light just still washes everything out. It's crazy. Alright, cool. Well, let's try this. I'm tired, guys. I've been working non-stop for over like a month and a half now. It's ridiculous. crazy hours. It's cool. I've got it. But man, I could use a nap. You know how it goes. So anyway, yeah, we're still in the midst of all this COVID stuff. So it's pretty crazy these days. Nobody really knows which way is up at the moment. And we're all trying our hardest just to make it through. We'll see how this goes. It's mid-April at this point. And so, they're starting to look at kind of soft lifts on some of the lockdown stuff. Not that lockdowns affect my end of things, but I know it's affected a lot of y'all out there. And so, who knows? Maybe by midsummer we may be back to some semblance of normalcy. Otherwise, midsummer gatherings are going to be dodgy at best. I don't know. We'll see. So, fun and games, folks. Fun and games. So, we're going to try a little bit of something here that was kind of a spin-off thought after some going back over some old ideas. And so, for those of you watching the bloopers right now, do send in your requests. I work with those a lot, actually. I love getting requests. It's like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about doing that, and so I'll gladly do it. Not a problem. Just need to get those requests in there. So we'll see how this goes. Anyway, we're gonna, if the squirrels and the birds in the background will chill out, we'll see what we got. All right. Oofta. Now, normally I can't still wear a coat in mid-April. It's usually, starting to warm up by now, but we had a cold front move through that's going to turn into a warm front this afternoon, tomorrow morning, something like that. So we may be looking at some pretty severe weather here in a little bit. Not today, but tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, it'll all be past tense by the time this video comes out. Time travel. Crazy. All right, we're live in 3, 2, 1. Let's jam. Just dawned on me that I think... Crap. Yep. That's going to be causing all kinds of havoc. Dadgummit. Alright, fine. Gotta move it again. Obviously, we're cutting. Because I do need more for now. Let's see if I can't do this. But it's kind of weirdly directional. That should be fine, I think. And I think I'm clearing it. So we should be all right there. All right. Back in 3, 2, 1. Let's jam. Pause. All right. We're back in 3, 2, 1. Let's jam. Can't get started. All right. Pitter patter, let's get at her. 3, 2, 1, let's jam.